Hello everyone, a very warm welcome back to the Flix Files. My name's Roger. So normally I do talk about all the stories of the previous week in my movie news videos that were of interest to me, but there's only really one story I want to talk about today, which is the very sad passing of the filmmaker David Lynch. This hit me a lot harder than I thought it would when I heard that he had died, and I think the last time I felt that way about a member of the movie world passing was when Tony Scott died in 2012. It was only a month previous to that my elder brother passed away, and I was still kind of recovering from his passing, and then I heard that Tony Scott had taken his own life. And it was the thought that I would never see another new movie by Tony Scott, that I found very sad. Obviously, I was very sad that he had done that and that he was no longer with us. But then it occurred to me that I would never see another Tony Scott movie, a new one. And I found that very sad and a great loss. And previous to that, Stanley Kubrick passed away in 1999, and I felt exactly the same way about that we would never see another Stanley Kubrick movie. And bless him, the gap between his films was getting larger and larger. So even if he was still alive at that point, he probably wouldn't have made another movie, because I think it was a 12-year gap between Full Metal Jacket and Eyes Wide Shut. But with David Lynch, he was in very poor health. He'd been a smoker since he was 8 years old, I believe. And he had been diagnosed with emphysema, which is a disease I know all too well, because that contributed to my father's death back in 2005. He was a smoker all of his life, and it caught up with him as he got older. So I want to do a little video about David Lynch and my history with David Lynch, and go through the David Lynch films that I have in my collection. So I'll try and keep this video short. My first introduction to David Lynch was back in 1984, and that was when I think it was Channel 4 that broadcast Eraserhead very late one night, and I can remember staying up to watch it because it was a movie that I'd heard of, and I knew it was meant to be quite surreal and very arty, and it was filmed in black and white, and it was by this filmmaker called David Lynch that I'd heard of, that was meant to be quite a very impressionistic and inventive filmmaker. And I watched it, and it had a great effect on me. To this day, I still really love Eraserhead. I love the world that he made within Eraserhead. And I think one of the reasons I loved that world so much was that my father worked in a factory in the 70s and 80s when I was growing up. And this factory, it had something to do with turning coal into a smokeless fuel. And we lived quite near this factory. And the look of this factory always appealed to me. And at night it would all be lit up and would look like a big mothership on the horizon. And I've tried to find photographs of this particular factory, and the only ones I can find are in the daytime, so I'll put a few of them up now. But there were times where me and my sister would walk to the factory to meet my dad at the end of his shift, and some of the workers there at the gate knew who we were, and they would let us in to a point, and we would get to see a little bit of the inside of the factory. That's just how more laid back it was in those days. And I always remember being completely fascinated by the look of some of the buildings in this factory and the sounds. And I didn't know what most of the things were that I was looking at, but I found it very, very appealing. And it was very heartwarming when I started to learn more about David Lynch, that he also had a fascination with factories and with the soundscape of factories. And there's a little element of that in quite a lot of his movies. And I think it was those memories and that love of the factory and the sounds and just the sights that really drew me into the Eraserhead world. So that's where I got hooked with David Lynch. So I think the next David Lynch film I saw after Eraserhead was that very next year when Dune became available on home video. And as a 15-year-old, I'd already read the first Dune book. It's one of my favourite science fiction novels, and I've got a hardback copy of it in my collection. And I adore David Lynch's version of Dune, and I know it's a very divisive movie and a lot of people really don't like it, but I do. I think he did incredibly well in trying to turn a very complex book into one movie. And I also loved the new Denis Villeneuve two-parter. But I think David Lynch's Dune trumps Denis Villeneuve's Dune in one area, and that's production design. I think the look of the sets and the costumes was way more intricate than Denis Villeneuve's Dune. Denis Villeneuve is an incredible filmmaker. I'm not denying that, and the new Dune movies are fantastic. But he tends to favour the minimalist look and have lots of wide open stages with very little dressing in them. Whereas David Lynch's Dune was a lot more involved and had a lot more props and dressing, and I loved the kind of Victorian steampunk aspect of some of it. I always think of the scene with the hunter-seeker, that's the large kind of torpedo with a needle on the end that's tracking Kyle MacLachlan's character, Paul Atreides, and you see the insides of it and it's like a clockwork sort of steampunk vibe. Fantastic. So that was the second David Lynch movie I saw, and I think it was then that I thought, I really like this filmmaker, I want to see what other things he's done. And I learned that he'd made a movie between those two called The Elephant Man. So that would have been the third David Lynch movie that I watched. But it was his next movie that completely won me over and just made me such a huge fan of David Lynch to this day. And that movie is Blue Velvet. And I did a video on my channel, the very first video I ever did, and it was my 15 favourite movies, not in any order. I think I made a point in that video saying these are not in order. They're just 15 of my all-time favourite movies. And Blue Velvet is one of those movies. And I think it's my favourite David Lynch movie. And I can't say anything bad about it. As a movie, it's faultless. I think it's absolutely faultless. And I adore that movie so much. So when I saw Blue Velvet, I just fell in love with it, and I fell in love with David Lynch as a filmmaker. And from that point on, whatever he was going to do next, I was going to watch. And then about 4 years after Blue Velvet, Twin Peaks came out, and I watched the whole of Twin Peaks as it was broadcast on BBC Two, I think it was, in the early 90s. The first series of Twin Peaks is absolutely superb. The second series loses its way. I think a lot of people will agree to that. But I was always excited with the episode of Twin Peaks where David Lynch actually directed that episode. It was a real treat, especially in the first season where the episode would start for that week. And when it came up saying directed by David Lynch, I would get goosebumps because I would think, yes, this is going to be of a higher level compared to other episodes that we've seen. And it almost always was. So yeah, that's kind of how I got into David Lynch. And I gathered together the David Lynch movies that I have on physical media. Now you'll be surprised to hear that I don't have them all. There are 2 movies of his that I don't yet have, for the simple reason that I have seen both of them, but they didn't connect with me as much as all of his other films. So as of me recording this video, I'm 2 films short. So I'm going to show you the movies that I do have, and I will do some separate footage so I can give you a clearer view of the box. And I'll just quickly do that now while I'm talking. So the first David Lynch movie, Eraserhead, I have the Criterion edition, which comes with an absolute wealth of extras, with a remastered picture, and It's a lovely, lovely Blu-ray. And if you're a fan of this movie, this is the definitive version. Absolutely. This is the version I would recommend you buy. The Elephant Man. This is the Studio Canal release. This was released on Blu-ray and 4K. I just bought the Blu-ray version simply because it was slightly cheaper. And I think it's a fantastic picture quality. I'm sure the 4K is superior, but it can't be superior by much because the quality of this is just superb. And again, it comes with a lot of lovely, lovely extras. Then we have the Arrow 4K box set of Dune, which I showcased in my Arrow collection video, which I uploaded on this channel a couple of months ago. Again, an absolutely fantastic release. It comes with a fold-out poster, and there's a booklet which I think is talks about some of the production issues in the movie. And yeah, a lot of extras, and it's a really lovely box set and a great way to own the movie. Then we go on to my favourite David Lynch movie, Blue Velvet. This is the 25th anniversary edition that I have. I think this has recently been released in 4K. I do plan on upgrading this version at some point because the version that I have is a bit bare bones with the special features, but it's still a lovely quality Blu-ray. I'm not knocking this one at all. It still looks absolutely superb, but I'm sure the 4K of this will be better. So I do plan on upgrading that one at some point soon. Then we have Wild at Heart. I think he released this movie just before the Twin Peaks craze really took off. Absolutely superb movie. Nicolas Cage and Laura Dern. Laura Dern is just so fantastic in this. She really makes that movie for me. I think she plays it so wonderfully. Again, there's a few extras on this Blu-ray, but nothing spectacular. But I'm glad I've got it. I'm glad I've got it on physical media. Then we have the first 2 seasons of Twin Peaks in the Blu-ray box set. This also includes the movie Twin Peaks Fire Walk With Me, which I saw at the cinema and was utterly confused by, but I still absolutely loved it. And it's, again, a terrific box set. There's some fantastic extras, and all of the episodes have been remastered into HD, and they look absolutely wonderful. Then we have Mulholland Drive with Naomi Watts. This has been a long time since I saw this movie, but there are some scenes in this movie that genuinely creep me out whenever I watch it. And it is a really, really good movie. This also has a 4K release that's recently come out. So this is another one I may upgrade before the end of the year. And then finally, we have the 3rd season of Twin Peaks on Blu-ray. And I want to just quickly talk about this because now that David Lynch has sadly passed away, I'm going to watch through these again. This is going to be my evening's viewing for the next 2.5 weeks. This is 18 episodes, I believe it is. And David Lynch wrote with Mark Frosten, and he directed every episode of this season. And it's genius. There are so many fantastic scenes in this series. And the only thing that comforted me when I heard of David Lynch's death is that he managed to finish this big event series of season 3 of Twin Peaks. And it's all his work. As I say, he directed every episode. And it's a wonderful thing to have as like his final triumphant hurrah of being a director, that he did this whole season of Twin Peaks. And it is completely brilliant, and there are some fantastic scenes in it. And I've only watched through it once, so I'm going to watch it again. Starting tonight, I'm going to begin with this 3rd season of Twin Peaks and just watch an episode a night and work my way through it. And that will kind of be my tribute to David Lynch. And what a great tribute it will be, because just the thought of watching this entire series again, it just warms my heart because I know how fantastic it was. And I'm just so glad that he was able to finish this series before his health really declined. So there we are. That's my David Lynch film and TV collection. And yeah, I was very sad to hear of his death. But he was 79, he had a good body of work behind him, and he did exactly what he enjoyed doing in life. So God bless him. I hope wherever he is now, he's getting lots of hot coffee and cherry pie. And yeah, I'm still kind of trying to get over the thought that he's not on planet Earth anymore. The Earth is definitely a poorer place. But I'm afraid that's the way it goes. As we get older, we begin to lose people that we love. That's just how it works. And this video is getting quite dour suddenly. So yeah, there we go. That's the only movie story of the past week that I wanted to talk about because it affected me so badly. And to be honest, I did look at what other stories in the movie world had happened in the past week, but there was nothing that really grabbed me. As I say, I only usually talk about stories that appeal to me personally, and hopefully they'll appeal to you. So thank you for watching. There will not be a video this Friday. I decided to take a break from doing deep dives and things like that while I try and work out the format that I'm going to be using. But I have recorded a different kind of video which will appear on the 31st of January, Friday the 31st. So do look out for that. And then hopefully from that point onwards, they will start appearing every Friday again. So no video this Friday, I'm afraid, guys, but there will be another movie news video next Tuesday. And then, as I say, there will be a video on Friday the 31st. So thank you for watching. If you like that, give me a thumbs up and I will speak to you very soon. So bye for now.